Hello and welcome to another episode of Rod Knockers. Today I've just started my next project. I've just removed the engine from this E39 525. I'm just waiting on collection of the engine in about an hour's time. This is going to be my new project car. I've also got my current E39 still, which is there. Sorry about the wind noise, it's a bit windy today, but there's the current E39 project car. And since the last episode many months ago, we've been very busy, but I've also got an E46 M3 convertible now, just as a summer car, but I've had to use it today because the current E39 project car doesn't want to play ball at the moment, and it decided to snap the crank pulley the other night, so that's going to be a job to rectify soon, maybe even later today. So back to the new project. I'm not going to say too much just yet because it's possibly a world first. I mean, I'm sure someone will tell me it's been done before, but I'm not sure what I'm about to do has been done in an E39 previously. So yeah, that's sort of the empty space. Not going to have a 2.5 litre engine anymore. It's going to be a bit bigger, but I can't say what it is just yet till I try and offer the engine up, and I'll see if it's possible, but I'll make it possible even if it won't fit. I mean, I think it's going to involve mods to all the cross member, steering linkages, probably even full exhaust system, prop shaft, gearbox linkages. It's going to be a massive project that hopefully is going to go on for the next 6 months, probably longer, because this might not be the car that said engine will end up in. And I've got a little surprise further down the line, but this will get me started, and we'll go from there and see what happens. What I'll do now is I'll put on a time lapse of me removing the front end, taking the engine out, and it was a really difficult job because I decided to stupidly leave the gearbox in. Now, when I've had the engine out of my other E39 many times, engine and box always come out as one, but I didn't really want to start dropping the full exhaust system and disconnecting the prop and all the linkages just yet, because I haven't got much space to store stuff. So till they're sold, they'll sort of stay in there. I might pull the gearbox out if it gets in my way, with trial fitting the new engine, but yeah, I'll put the time lapse up of me removing the engine now, and then I'll do another short video after, just explaining where I'm going with it. Okay, so now the breaker's outside. I mean, with its massive monster truck arch gap on the front. Looks like a normal car till you open the bonnet, and I think there's a bit of something missing in there, but we'll get to that either later today or another time. I mean, now I've got my own E39 back in there. It's back in the shed. And I'm just going to have a look at fixing the crank pulley. So down there, let me just get a torch. Down there you can see the woodruff key has actually become damaged, so I'm going to try and replace the woodruff key and put a new front pulley on. As you can see by the upper sump, it's chucked a bit of oil out of the front main seal, maybe with it not being balanced with the front pulley going off everywhere. It's also damaged the casing ever so slightly. It's only scraped the paint, but yeah, I'll live with that one. So yeah, hopefully I can get the woodruff key out without having to take the crank out. I have practiced this on one of many spare engines that I've got for this car, and it was possible to get it out without taking all the crank out the engine and having the sprocket pressed off and then being able to change the woodruff key. It was a bit of hammering, screwdriver action, but it got there in the end, and it didn't seem to damage the edge of the crank at all. So first of all, I'm going to drain the cooling system, get it all drained off, get the rad out the way, and then see from there. I might take the front end off, but it's a lot of work, especially with the extra heat exchanger behind the bumper. And there, it just makes it a lot more awkward, especially by yourself, to get it on and off easily. So yeah, I'm going to drain the rad, get the rad out, and then I'll see if I can get in there with a hammer and screwdriver. Okay, so the radiator's out. See, most of it went on the floor, bit of antifreeze, bit of power steering fluid from Easier, and most of it all up my sleeve. So yeah, now we can see the woodruff key a bit better. You can just see it, the light is not great. You can just turn the flash on. Yeah, now you can see how it's just bented a little bit. I haven't actually tried sliding a new what do you call it, a front pulley hub, as it's a separate part between the two. I mean, I highly doubt that the woodruff key will still be straight enough to slide straight back on. And yeah, let's see what happens. Okay, probably doesn't help that the crank is hot right now. Hopefully it'll get a bit better when it's cooled down, but at the moment, not even the hub will sort of go on. Oh, nearly punched the aircon condenser. I think what I need to do is wait for the crank to cool down a bit more, as it is an interference fit. It doesn't feel like it's done any damage to the end of the crank. Hopefully not, anyway. So yeah, I'll wait for it to cool down, and in that time I might try and get the woodruff key out, see if it'll budge at all. Okay, so surprisingly, in about 5 minutes I've got the woodruff key out. I mean, the crank looks perfectly fine in there. It's a bit of a clean out, but yeah, I'm absolutely shocked. I mean, on the practice I did at home with another engine, it took me about 20 minutes, but I've just done that in about 2. So hopefully I can get the new one in. I mean, I've just stuck them in the freezer. Hopefully they'll cool down a bit and just make that bit of a difference on sliding in a bit easier, and then just tap it in gently with a block of wood or something just so it doesn't damage it. But yeah, I don't really know what to say. I'm quite amazed at that, because I spoke to some other people and they says the only way I'll do it is get the crank out the engine, get it on a press, pull the front timing sprocket off, change the woodruff key and press it all back together, which I didn't really want to do, but now so far so good. I mean, yeah, we'll see if the hub will go on once the crank's cooled down. So yeah, after the woodruff key being in the freezer for a short time, I mean, yeah, that's a new hub damper on, and yeah, seems alright. I mean, I'm going to wait till the car's back on the floor, cover the main bolt in Loctite so it can never go anywhere, and then yeah, put it back on the floor, put it in gear with the brakes on, and get him as tight as I can with the breaker bar. I mean, you're supposed to have a special tool which bolts on the hub, and I think you can have it so it tucks underneath the chassis leg there, but without taking all the aircon off and actually buying the tool from BMW, I'd struggle to do it. So this is the only way I can do it. It's not ideal, but it'll get me out of this situation. I should be able to get it tight enough, and with thread lock on there, it should never be an issue. I mean, hopefully that one's not going to snap this time, but yeah, we'll have to see. So I'm going to get the car back on the ground, and then yeah, get the nut done up, and away we go. Okay, so it's the next day now. My E39's out there. I mean, I'm going to buy the tool to hold the crank in place so I can tighten it properly. So yeah, till that arrives, I'll just park it up for now. So I'm back, got the breaker car back in there, and I've actually offered up the sump off the new engine. Some people might be able to guess what engine it is by looking at that, but we'll get to what engine it is shortly. I mean, the gearbox is out of there now. I still need to get the prop out of the way because I can tell it's going to be far too long for the engine and gearbox combo that I'm running. When yeah, this is the sump. I think there's going to be quite a lot of chopping of the subframe happening, especially on that bar down there that runs side to side, and then some extra reinforcement put in instead. I mean, there's quite a lot of space around the steering column, so we should be able to get the sump quite a bit lower, which off my rough measurements for the height of the new engine is definitely going to need as much as we can get, because otherwise the bonnet's going to end up getting chopped and might have to have a bit of a hump or a bulge in there. I don't really want to do that, but I can't really start repositioning the steering rack, so it'll just change all the bump steer and just far too much. I have thought about maybe some subframe spacers, but with the way the E39 locates its subframe, you'd have to drop it quite a lot to be able to get some spacers in there. That's what it is. It's a pin that sticks out the shell from there, locates inside the subframe there, so without going past the length of the pin that's sticking out the shell to then put an adjuster on there, you're probably talking about 25 to 30 mil, which is probably going to mess with the suspension geometry too much for what I'd like. I'd like to keep it so it handles as near enough the same as factory. So yeah, I'm going to have a look at maybe chopping the subframe and we'll go from there.